we awaken to new life every moment of every day. You got up this morning, but there is something more calling you, because every day is a little bit different. And if it's not, that's what we call, a groove becomes a rut, right? So, but there is too much change, I frequently hear, right? Can't things stay the same? Well, they can't. They can't. And Unity has a teaching, is change is not a threat, it's an invitation. So while many of us may not like what's happening, we can be invited into being a different kind of change agent, that we can interact with what's happening in a new and profound way so that more can be revealed on the planet. Change, when we see it as a threat, we become defensive and small and protective rather than curious, intrigued, seeking possibility and hope. So when we can shift ourselves into that understanding, something else changes. As I was preparing for today, I looked at all the teachings of resurrection across many, many different cultures. And the one thing I found is, you know what it takes to be resurrected? It takes having to die. It takes actually literally having to die. And there's a Sufi saying that says, you must die before you die, so that you can truly live. So that you must die. Die to your old idea. Die to your limited thinking. Die to the role that is crippling you. Die to the expectations that wear you down. Die to the box that someone or you have put yourself in. And live more fully than you have ever known before. All the world's myths, all the world's avatars, and great teachers have taught us this. So in my research, I found this. Hercules. Did you know the myth of Hercules? It's from Stoicism and from Greek mythology, that he had to suffer. He had to suffer 12 labors of Hercules. They were so outrageous, what he had to go through in his life, that it eventually killed him. Right? That's how hard his life was. But at the same time, that death that made him, and his struggle through it all, made the gods make him immortal. And he turned the suffering into his resurrection. And now he has eternal life in Greek mythology. But that Stoicism idea that you must endure, you must go through the labor to get to resurrection, to get to new life, is an ancient idea of spirituality. And how do we embody that today? So if you're going to resurrect yourself, do you have to struggle like Hercules? Do you have to go through the 12 labors of Hercules, like the 12 apostles, or the 12 steps, or the 12 months of the year? All these 12s, right, that Hercules had to endure. How many have you had in your life? How many do you have left to go? Can you let go of letting them go? Can you let go of just the struggle? The phoenix, one of my favorite myths, right? The phoenix does not fear the fire. Do you know that? The phoenix actually sets itself on fire in its own fire. It creates the fire and then jumps in because it knows that it must be purified, that the fire, the death is not the end. It knows that it is necessary to let go of the limited self to transcend into another, higher, more brilliant, younger, more vibrant self. So I am certainly ready to let go of the old me and have a new, younger me, right? Not that I want to be young again. I love the wisdom of my age. I love the wisdom of my decades on the planet. But I do want to let go of the tiredness. Oh, I can get applause for that. Yes. We're going to let go of I'm so tired. Oh, I can't. Well, that's because we've been taking on the world as it is rather than what it could be. It is exhausting to face the world and to do this over and over again, like the 12 labors of Hercules. Again, get up, do the same thing over again. When we can be reborn every morning into what is going to happen today, what is this day going to bring, what am I going to bring to the day, and what am I going to do, we are reborn like the phoenix. We let go of the old self and we dive into life with new passion and new understanding. But what is most interesting about that, and I've noticed in my life, is that I can know that intellectually. I can know it from reading it and experiencing it in other people's journeys. But when I go through that process, I keep doing the same things over and over again. I wake up with this new intention and this new idea, and then I find myself right back where I started. And there's another myth that comes from Egyptian mythology, the myth of Osiris. Now, Osiris is murdered by betrayal and then reassembled by his sister. But when he is reassembled and resurrected in the Egyptian mythology, he doesn't go back to his old life. He goes back to a new form. And he has on new duties and new responsibilities. He then becomes the god of death, of the underworld. And what I found really fascinating about studying this is that we always just take on the same old role. We say we're going to reinvent ourselves, but we fall into the same patterns. How many of you are spending time with your family this week? Nobody here. Okay. All right. So I started the text chain with my family, right? With my birth family this morning. And it just reminded me of so many things. When my mother transitioned last year, my siblings and I all got together and we were taking care of all the things that needed to be taken care of that. And it is amazing how quickly we all fell right back into the family systems that we had when we were children, right? And that we instantly became those same roles all over again. Now, decades have passed since any of us were children, but we still do the same job in the family system. What if you disturb the family system by being not the caretaker, not the troublemaker, not the black sheep, that you take on a new role of facilitator, of peacemaker, of detached. Everything's okay, right? A role of real spiritual understanding that you don't have to be what you used to be to survive. That is resurrection. That is transformation. That is letting go on a cellular level. Just like Osiris, you can be different. You can take on a new role. Dionysus is really fun. Not easy. Born and murdered, then reborn out of Zeus's thigh. I don't understand. I don't know what the metaphysical meaning of being born out of Zeus's thigh is, but let's just go with it, okay? So he's born again out of Zeus's thigh. But what amazing about what Dionysus' resurrection is that he then transcends life and death, and he is the god of chaos. He understands that the human roles and the human structures are too limiting, and he dances between the two realms, the spiritual realm and the human realm. And he is the god of mirth and fun and absolute mayhem. And I have so identified with Dionysus my whole life because I love to blow things up, right? I love to blow up structures, and I love to see how it all falls back together. It drives my family crazy, right, honey? Amen, right? And so I can let go of some of my Dionysus tendencies, right? I can let go of that and take on a new role of peacemaker and organizer and and stoicism. I can take on a new role if I choose, and so can you, each and every one of you. One of my favorites is this Sumerian and Babylonian goddess. She's called by two names, Eanna and Ishtar, or Easter, in case you didn't get that. So she was the goddess of fertility and life. And when she descended into the underworld, she came back transformed. Not only did she still have the ability of prosperity and abundance and life and rebirth, but she also then managed life and death. So Ishtar was a myth populating the Mediterranean culture of Palestine and Greco-Roman worlds in the first century. In the first century when Jesus showed up. And Jesus appears in all of these myths of resurrection, and he leads his life, and he's an incredible rabbi and teacher and way shower and exemplar, right? Showing us how we can live a spiritual life in this world. And of course, we all know the story. He was crucified for it. And at Unity, we talk about this as a metaphor. We talk about this as the metaphor of Jesus' death is that we must die to our old selves to be reborn into something else. But the fact is that the historical Jesus, the man who actually walked the earth, was killed by the Romans for his speaking up. So I don't want to pass over that. Because we're being called, many of us right here and now, in this time, in this place, to raise our voice, to raise our hand, and say no to authority. Speak truth to power. And in Jesus' time, that got him crucified. That got him killed and laid out in a tomb or in a potter's field. We don't really know what happened. But he was killed. That much we know. So, what is the lesson for us here today? Because if Jesus is our way shower, not a great exception, not the only Son of God, but a child of God, just like you and you and you and you are children of God, and every one of you listening to this online are all expressions of God, then what is the example of Jesus, and how does it fit into these other archetypes and avatars and mythologies around what it is to be reborn, resurrected, transformed, re-enlivened? How do we walk out of this building today, out of your home after you listen to this, and be different than when you sat down? How do we take these teachings to a new level? How do we not make this Easter just like every other Easter, where it was really pretty and we had a great meal and everybody gets a new outfit, but nothing changes? Nothing changes. One of the amazing things about all of these archetypes is that after they are resurrected, they are not the same person. Every single one of them is profoundly changed at core. Jesus, when he ascends from the tomb, when he comes up in that time, is unrecognizable. Mary Magdalene, who knew him so well, does not recognize him. He's walking along the road with his disciples, and they do not know it's him. He has the ability to walk through walls, to appear in time and space, and he does not go back to teaching. What does he do? He goes to his followers and he tells them that you are to teach. You are to get out and do it. You are to lift up the people and let them know they are the light of the world. It is up to you to make heaven on earth right now. That is the example of Jesus, and that is the example of all of the archetypes of resurrection. That we are reborn in spirit, in truth, to be something that we've not been living up to before. Something's calling you, Misa sang. Something is calling you to something deeper and greater in this life, in this world. And it's not easy. It is totally not easy. Because we have this this underlying fear, this deeply embedded feeling of unworthiness, of smallness. And I don't care if it's just the size of a mustard seed, but it's what stops us from really growing and really taking on what's ours to do in this world. I know that I kicked and screamed when I first heard this call to become a minister. It's like, I can't do it. No, I found lots of different ways around it. And even to this day, I stand up here on Easter going, how am I going to give an Easter talk again? How am I going to do this? And how is it going to be meaningful or relevant to people's lives that can make a difference in this world? Because I hear all your calls. I hear all the concerns that we are all going through as we live on this planet in the 21st century. Debbie Ford said it this way: the greatest act of courage is to be and own all of who you are without apology. Every little quirk, every little nuance, every little part of you is special. It is what makes you unique, and you are exactly who you're supposed to be in this moment. When we can show up without the title, without the mask, without the persona, without the artifice, and say, I don't know. I don't know how to make this all work. It is just as frustrating to me as it is to you. But I know that if I do nothing, nothing changes. So I'm willing to accept the invitation to change. I am willing to accept the invitation to creating a new heaven and a new earth right now. And what I'm calling all of us to do is to show up imperfect, human, to show up unprepared, to show up authentically who we are. Gay, straight, white, black, brown, Asian, Hispanic, transgender, asexual, unemployed, homeless, retired, unknown, trying to figure it all out, and say, I'm here, let me serve. Show up brokenhearted and say, how can I help? Rather than, I need. Just to show up in all of our humanness, because in our collective humanity lies our collective spirituality. So we need to release the having to. We need to release the how we show up. We need to release not good enough. We need to rest with each other in a spiritual community and in organizations that are about deep, deep listening. We need to grow. We need to take on what is ours to do and learn how to be bigger than we've ever been before. There's more to life than we can imagine. And when we realize, have a revelation, we get to bloom. Come on up. I've asked the music team to sing this song for us because it's about our personal journey. It's about our personal journey into realizing that there is no second coming of Jesus. The second coming of Jesus is when we awaken to the Christ consciousness within us. When we realize that we are it. There's no one else that God up in the sky, because there's no God up in there, and that whatever that heaven is, sending their only begotten Son down to save the earth. That's an old idea. The second coming, if you really carefully read the scriptures, is about the Christ consciousness being born in each and every one of us. So when we can realize that, when we can step into that, we can bloom into what the world really needs.